Hi, my name is Atif. This is my first lecture in the journey of learning fire safety. Let me clarify in the beginning. Most of these resources used in these videos are taken from NFP training and NFP codes and standards. So I will recommend you go through these codes too to get more from these lectures. What is our target in these presentations? By the end of this presentation, we should be able to understand the characteristics of fire and how it propagates, how it initiates alarm, and the basic of the fire alarm control panels and its types, and its components like detectors and notification devices, horn, strobes, and others. When we need fire alarm system, do you have any idea why when we need and when we don't require? Actually, the requirement of fire alarms in a building is usually decided by local or internationally recognized codes and standards, and it is owner's requirement also. He will tell you what you need and what you don't. And these codes organize fire alarm requirement based on the types of occupancy and the use of the property. For example, the requirement for office building would be different than the requirement of hospital or an airport. For example, in a building, maybe you need notification devices at every area, but in the hospital, you cannot put some notification devices in the ICU or where the patients who cannot move, which requires help from because it may create panic. So you should understand which area you are going to protect. That's very important. And for an occupancy or use group, the risk and hazard vary depending on the building height, means how high the building is, the requirement might be different. And the types of constructions, means how the building has been constructed. Maybe it's a steel constructed by steel or timber or woods. And this is very important because the requirement would be different for different kinds of building. And the occupant load, which is very interesting. For example, like in an office building, the number of occupants are different in the night, in the day. So you must have considered these points when you are designing in fire alarm systems. And another one is whether the building you are protecting by fire alarm system, whether it has sprinkler system or any kind of suppression system or not. For example, if in a building which is well equipped with automatic sprinkler system, there might not any need of smoke detection, only notification system might be required. However, in a residential building where there is no sprinkler system, there might be need of automatic detection system in common areas and smoke alarms in the apartments. Before we go further, first we should understand the terms codes and standard, which is basic words you hear whenever you design anything. For example, IBC, International Building Code, and IFC, International Fire Code, and Internet standard for the installation of the sprinkler systems and fire pump. Similarly, so what is code? Code is a law, regulation, requirement for the construction and fire safety, which establish the requirements. And the standard is a document that the code refers. The codes tell you that go to the standard and design like this, which provides the details of application, installation, location, and performance and maintenance. In simple words, you can say the code tells you what you need to do, and the standard tells you how to do. For example, code may tell you a building must have fire alarm system, but the standard will spell out what kind of system and how it must work. Though each country has their own codes. However, NFP2 and NFP54, EN54 are widely recognized codes and standard which one might needs to reference whenever he design a fire alarm system. NFP22 is based on American standard. It's a National Fire Protection Association, and EN is an English standard, which are usually British occupied countries follows. Fire Alarm System Incorporated CSR model. What is CSR? Where C stands for condition, S for signal, and R for response. Fire alarm system signals other systems in response to some change in the condition. So you can see the all three keywords were there in the sentence. What's the meaning of these terms? First, a condition. A condition is a situation, an environmental state or equipment state of a fire alarm or a signaling system. What is the state of something, which will tell you what is the condition at a particular moment. A signal is a message indicating a condition which is communicated by electrical, visible and audible, or by other means. For example, it might be electrical communication between the detector and the panel. So what your detector will give you a signal to the panel. What is the response? Response is action performed upon receiving of a signal. One of the panel response might be to activate occupants notification signals to initiate the evacuation response whenever they receive a signal from the detector, or they can initiate a response to for emergency forces response. Fire alarm system signals other system also, the signal to the fire brigade, fire department, or even maintenance teams to respond upon receiving a change in a condition. Whenever the condition change, so basically, but whenever the condition, any change in a condition, it will give you a signal, and then your panel will respond accordingly. So before in understanding fire alarm system also, and how to choose detectors and all these things, you must understand what is fire. You must understand the basic fire dynamics. You may or may not heard about the fire triangle. So when fire occurs, fire starts only when three elements comes together. That is fuel, air, and heat, which is famously called fire triangle. If you remove any one of them, you can suppress fire, or you can control fire. You can suppress. So these three things. So what happened when the fire begins? Then after some time, another element is added, but it's called chain reaction. So which keep going, and it will burn the burn the objects nearby them, and fire can become catastrophic. So we have to understand more about during the initial phase of a fire, radiant energy travels as a light wave. The radiant energy can heat other objects. For example, if you see here, when the fire occurs, the flow is going upward. So here you can see the radiant energy is coming. This energy is going here. So this energy is called radiant energy, which can be detected by any radiant energy detectors, famously known as the flame detector. So flame detector will detect in this fire, and it can detect fire in the earlier stage. So once the combustion begins, how the fire develops, it largely depends on the characteristics configuration of the fuel involved and the available oxygen. Combustion of a fuel can take place as an open flaming fire or any solid phase combustion called smoldering fire. This type of behavior means if this fire is a flaming fire, if the fire is just burning with lesser smoke, so you might need different kind of detector. But if it's burning like a solid phase or smoldering fire, you have to may use different kind of detectors, like a smoke detector. Smoke quantity is higher. So the product of fire contains water, CO2, soot particles, and smoke, which rises above. You can see which rises above. They all are rising above. When it hits the ceiling, it moves horizontally, and when it this is called ceiling jet. When it moves in direct from the top, it is called ceiling jet. So that's why you have to put the detector on the top, because when the fire is moving upward, it will go and straight up in the horizontal direction in the top. So you install the detectors here. The hot fire gas is in the plume. You can see when the fire is moving, it is called fire plume. When the fire plume and the ceiling jet can be detected by, it can be detected by heat detector, and the solid and liquid particles can be detected by smoke detectors. So usually when it goes, so when you have a flaming fire temperature, you heat detector, but if the smoke is higher, the soot particles and these things which are mainly detected by these hot gases and smoke, and it has particles which is detected by smoke detector. Fire detection devices such as smoke detector, gas detector, flame detectors, that all can be used, anything can be used to detect these fire conditions. So this is how fire propagates. Once it is radiant energy, it goes upward direction because of the temperature, high temperature and low temperature. It's going up, and when it hits ceiling, it will go in a horizontal direction, which is called ceiling jet. So now we should understand what are the stages of fire. There are various stages of fire. First, it is which is called incipient fire, when the just fire occurs, when, because if we have all three elements which we discussed, the fuel, heat and air, it will keep growing, and this is called a fire growth stage. So during incipient, we can use its temperature increase very fast. So heat detector, smoke detector, and smoke is generating. The smoke detector will detect very fast. Flame detector will detect also very in early stage and with the less chances of false than smoke detector, because sometimes it's a little bit change in temperature and smoke detector. So smoke detector are the fastest, but however these are makes the chances of the false alarm. And the heat detect, and after some time when everything is burned and the your room is burning, keep burning, and it go to the flashover. The growth of a fire is depends on the number of variables, which includes fuel load, means how much fuel is there, ventilation, which controls the air, oxygen, which is a element of fire, room size, if the room is big means more air and the fire and it can burn longer, fuel configuration and other ambient conditions. Selection of a detection will depend on these variables such as also ambient temperature, humidity and presence of dust and aerosols and so forth. So whenever the fire occurs, it gives you something, some condition. There is a change in conditions. So what it is doing, fire detection devices such as smoke detection, gas detector, flame detector detects change in the atmosphere resulting from the fire, the change of smoke, and these changes are called fire signature. So when every detectors or different kind of detector detect any signature, and based on this signature you select different kind of detectors in a fire alarm system. So what is our goal in fire safety? What is the most important thing? Why we do fire safety? What is our purpose of the fire safety? First, building and fire codes evolved. Usually these codes, building and fire codes, are evolving with time, mainly after some tragic events. The codes change with every fire. If you go to 18th century, four codes were different. The 19th century changes, the 20th century changes, and each and every fire codes are also evolving. So goals of the course keep improving with time also. Goals are usually in this order. The first goal is mainly life safety, not only for the occupant but also the firefighter, because firefighters are in the grave danger because they entered in the building when there is a fire. So our main purpose is to save people first. Then property safety. We have to consider the property protection to contain the fire in a limited area. We don't want it to get it spread. And third is mission control, mission protection, to keep the business running. You don't want to lose your business. To keep for a critical government, mainly for the government is infrastructure and critical services like such as hospital and government services and telecommunication centers. You want to do all these three things. You don't want to go out of business like it's in a restaurant. If there's a fire in a restaurant and if the fire occurs there, maybe you will out of business for a long time. So this is our third priority. And the fourth is environmental protection, which is not, there's special forms of protection like environmental protection. You don't want that to use any gas which is harming atmosphere, like in a gas suppression system previously there was the halon gas we used to, but you can see it is very harmful for the environment, like ozone depletions and others. So we are not using that. So this is for environmental and heritage preservation. So we have to be very careful when, but this is the last one. We care first is like for life safety, like we have to maintain our historical sites. Like you can see 2 days ago there was a fire in Notre Dame in the the cathedral in France. So because it was the last, unfortunately the event, no casualty was there. So it's, so this is because this is our last, this is in a hierarchy, it comes at the last. But again we have to maintain, we don't want our historical buildings go on fire, so we will lose. Let's see what is fire, how fire affects. Let's see this video, you can find this one on YouTube. Let's in this here the fire, you can see on this side the fire is beginning, and there's no sprinkler here, but you can see some detector detect the smoke in very early stage, but there is no suppression here. You can see it's burning and burning. The fire begins as a smoldering fire because of the solid particle in the first part of the video, and you can see once fire begins and grows, and you can see here within within 2 minutes it's a flashover. Whole room is burned within, you can say within before 2 minutes. And this is a flashover, and the firefighters came in 2 minutes and they were able to suppress the fire. But in real scenario, you think firefighter will come so early? That's why I will suggest you should convince people you should have a sprinkler system, and you can see how the sprinkler will work here.
It's still going to travel up the curtain. That sprinkler needs to see a 155. The ceiling temperature is going to be smoke alarm.
You see the fire occurs,
We have activation.
and the sprinkler is activated now.
At activation in about 20 seconds.
Yeah, you can see it happens in 20 seconds. For the sprinklers, water came, and your building is safe. Your room will be safe. So you can see the importance of any protection system, but it's different than the detectors. Detectors just detect and give the signals to leave the buildings or something. In the second part of video we have a sprinkler which extinguishes the fire. So if we have a notification device like bell or horn and stop, it can notify the occupant during any fire event. If the as you can see, if the sprinkler system is there, it will give more time to escape, especially for elderly, infants, or disabled people. Now let's go to our first part, which we have to understand: fire alarm system. Fire alarm system, it uses a combination of automatic and manual initiating devices. You can see here there's and design which is designed to signal the need for the building occupants to evacuate, relocate in the event of fire, which is usually done by notification appliances. Any other emergencies report event to the off-premises locations like the emergency services, fire brigade services, and others. You can use any, they must have some relays to connect with this one. And there are emergency control functions also, like you have to control your doors, fire doors, fan, exhaust fan. So you must have relays for this one and transmitter for off premises like fire brigade, fire department services. And there must be two powers, one primary power and secondary power. Don't worry, we will discuss all these points one by one. So what are the components of fire alarm? Fire alarm is, as we discussed in the previous slide, fire alarm system comprised of many components. First, initiating devices, notification devices, power supply, and emergency control functions, and transmitter. We will discuss all these things later, but first we have to understand few more terms. Fire alarm control panel. So fire alarm control panel did three things. It receives the signal, it transmits the system, and provide the power to the notification devices. So panel, it is a hub. Actually, it is the mind of the system. It is a hub of the system. It receives information from the initiating devices, then it gives the necessary transmission information based on the predetermined sequence. You already program all the sequences. It provides the electrical energy to operate any indicating devices, control relays, notification appliances, or any transmitters. What are initiating devices? Initiating device provides an input the fire alarm control unit, either manually actuated like manual police station or automatically actuated detectors. Using the condition signal response model, which we already discussed in the beginning, the automatic detectors are used to sense the change in environmental conditions. Again, that's fire signature. After the detection, it gives signal to the fire alarm control panel. Then we come to the notification devices. What is notification devices? As the name suggests, to notify the occupants. It tells you the occupants that there's a fire, so you must leave the building or whatever the action is necessary, such as flashing lights, strobes, horn. They use the usually they take the energy from the control panel itself to inform the occupants. And these devices take energy, so you must have always power. So you either primary or secondary. So they must have two powers for this. So power source, as we discussed now, must be two power sources. One is primary source, usually which is AC mains, which should be available, and you can use generator, but this should be generator dedicated to these systems. And you have the secondary power, which can be like batteries, which you have to design the size of the batteries, which we will discuss in future videos, how to calculate these battery sizes. So it can be a standby generator with the batteries. We can have UPS also, which we will discuss again later. Fire alarm control panel has another functions. Another point, there are many other types of transmission which is used to send the notification to the premises to either supervising stations or a public emergency alarm reporting system, and the control of the other equipments like an elevator, exit doors, exhaust fans, and others, which is usually connected by different kind of relays. So some panels have their relays there inside, which you can interface with different kind of these equipments like an elevator and these things. Usually you connect with the relays. And the transmitter. There are many types of transmitter used to send information from a protected premises to either supervising station or to a public emergency alarm reporting system like an alarm box. I think you have seen on this different whenever you're walking nearby subway station and these things, you might see these alarm boxes, which is used to transmit signal to fire services. You can find these, as I told, but be careful, don't use them until you see the threat of fire, because it's an offense It's a crime offense which you use it without when there is no fire or something. I think you have seen in many in Hollywood movies or something. You can find people are using these alarm systems, but you shouldn't use until you see the threat. Otherwise, you will face a high penalty as well as you may have to go jail. Depends on the countries. A transmitter can be an integral part of the building fire alarm system or an add-on unit. As I told that it can be the part of the panel or as well as it can be the add-on unit which will connect it directly to the panels. So initiating devices. Now we will go through the initiating devices here. Initiating devices provides an input the fire alarm control panel either manually actuated, which can be used manual call points, or automatically actuated where different kind of detectors like a heat detector, smoke detector, radiant energy sensing detector, which is called flame detector, and an air sampling kind of detector. The using the condition signal response model, automatic detector are used to sense the change in environment condition. After detecting it, it gives the signal to the fire alarm control panel. We have discussed this earlier too. So initiating devices. Here you can see manual call points. I think you have seen these things every place. So it is also one kind of initiating device because it initiates the alarm when some person see the fire by themselves. When they see the fire, so they can initiate it. Again, this is not used until there is a fire because the panel can give the signal to the fire alarm service, fire alarm department. So people will come, and if there is no fire, it would be a great, again you would be in trouble. So but you should learn how to use it so that you in the fire you can use it. There are different kind of detectors, so let's talk about first smoke detectors and few of smoke detectors types. This is the ionization detectors. As you can see the ionization detectors. Here you can see there are some radioactive elements which is called AM241. There may be different also used. You can find this one in document in NFPSA. Whenever smoke enters in the chamber, in this ionization chamber, it makes the current flow. It makes the ions. It makes these radioactive metals, and it makes the ions like positive and negative ions, cations and ions, and it moves to the charge to the different charges, and which make the circuit, which make the full circuit, and the current goes to this direction from these directions, and it will give you the alarm. So it contains this radioactive. It's so basically how to define this. It contains a small amount of radioactive material to ionize the air between two differently charged electrodes to sense the presence of smoke particles, and it gives the alarm. Smoke detectors. Another type of smoke detector is photoelectric detector. What is photoelectric? Like, as you know, photo means light. It contains photocell and the light source. You can see light source. This is a fitted light, which light is keep going from the reflector. Light is emitted continuously from the source as soon as smoke enters in the chamber. As you can see, the smoke is entering the chamber. In the chamber, it scatters the light and it reflects to the photocell, and then it produces the current and the short circuit the circuit and gives the alarm condition. So it is going there this direction, and as soon as the smoke is this one, it deflects to these directions, and then it makes the current flow and it short the circuit, and it will let the fire alarm panel there is smoke there. There's another kind of smoke detectors. When the room height is very high, you cannot use smoke detectors, especially like more than 30 feet. You don't use these things. So beam detector, it contains light source and the photo light source here. When the dense smoke occurs, part of the light beam or dense smoke obscures more of the beam when the fire is happening here and the smoke is going. So whenever smoke comes in between them, there is no receiver that can get these lights. So it gives the signal to the panel that there is fire there. Usually it is installed in the areas, as I told earlier, that's more than 30 feet. As smoke will, as you can see, it's when the height is more than 30. So as the smoke will take more time to reach to the top, which will delay the detection time, which eventually can make catastrophe. So heat detectors and this thing, I think I will discuss about it in the next video. Thank you very much, and let's